Everyone walked past the freezing mother at the station. Only one man stopped. The city was moving faster than ever that night. Outside the Chicago train station, thousands of footsteps crossed the pavement. Car lights passed through the winter darkness, and people hurried toward warmer places. But near the last platform, a young mother stood quietly with her 6-year-old son, holding onto a small bag and trying to stay calm. Emma Wilson had learned not to expect miracles. Life had taught her that some problems could not be solved with a wish. They were solved one small step at a time. The winter air was sharp, and the temperature had dropped below freezing. Her train had been delayed, and the little money she had saved for the week had already been carefully planned. She looked at her son, Lucas, and smiled even though she was tired. "We will figure this out," she whispered. Lucas nodded because he trusted his mother more than anyone in the world. Emma was not waiting for someone to rescue her. She was simply doing what she had always done. She was protecting her child and finding a way forward. Across the station, Nathan Brooks stepped out of a private meeting with his business team. At 39 years old, he was known across America as one of the most successful CEOs in the technology industry. His company was worth billions of dollars. His schedule was filled with important decisions, expensive dinners, and meetings that could change entire markets. People saw him as a man who had everything, but they did not see the quiet moments when he returned to an empty apartment after another long day. They did not see the man behind the title. Nathan walked through the station with his phone in his hand, reading messages from his executives. He was already thinking about tomorrow. Another meeting. Another decision. Another day focused entirely on success. Then he saw her. Not because she looked helpless. Not because she asked for attention. He noticed Emma because she was helping someone else while she was struggling herself. An elderly passenger had dropped a few belongings near the platform, and Emma immediately stepped forward to help gather them. Nathan stopped walking. Something about that simple moment felt different. He had spent years surrounded by people who wanted something from him. Yet this woman, who had almost nothing, was giving something freely. Kindness. Nathan slowly approached and asked if they needed help finding a warmer place to wait. Emma looked at him carefully. She recognized the expensive coat, the confidence, and the way people around him seemed to notice his presence. But she did not see a billionaire. She saw a person offering help. "Thank you," she said politely. "But we will be okay." Her answer surprised him. Most people accepted his offers before he finished speaking. But Emma was different. She was not looking for money. She was looking for dignity. Nathan smiled slightly and stayed nearby. For the first time in years, he was not thinking about business, profits, or reputation. He was simply present. He did not know it yet, but that cold night at the train station would become the moment that changed everything. Because sometimes the person you stop to help is the person who teaches you what you were missing all along. The next morning, Nathan Brooks expected the memory of the train station to fade away like every other unexpected moment in his busy life. But it did not. As he sat inside his glass office overlooking downtown Chicago, surrounded by reports and business calls, his mind kept returning to the woman who had refused his help. Emma Wilson was different from everyone he usually met. She did not know his company's value. She did not care about his reputation. She simply saw a person offering kindness and responded with honesty. For reasons he could not explain, that small moment stayed with him. Meanwhile, Emma returned to her normal routine. Her morning began before sunrise, preparing breakfast for Lucas, organizing his school bag, and getting ready for another long day at the bakery where she worked. Her life was not easy, but she had created a rhythm that helped her keep moving forward. She believed that stability was built through small choices every day. She did not want anyone to feel sorry for her. She wanted Lucas to grow up knowing that challenges were not the end of a story. They were simply another chapter. Later that week, Nathan found himself near the neighborhood where Emma lived. It was not planned. He was visiting a local business partner and noticed a small bakery on the corner. Through the window, he saw Emma arranging fresh pastries while Lucas sat nearby, finishing his homework. The scene was simple, but something about it felt meaningful. There were no luxury cars, no business discussions, and no people trying to impress anyone. There was just warmth. Nathan stepped inside, not as a billionaire CEO, but as a customer. Emma recognized him immediately. "You are the man from the station," she said with a small smile. Nathan nodded. "And you are the woman who would not let me help." Emma laughed softly. "I was grateful. I just did not want to feel like someone's problem." Those words stayed with Nathan. He realized she had misunderstood what he wanted to offer. He was not interested in saving her. He respected her strength. Over a cup of coffee, they talked about ordinary things. Emma shared stories about Lucas, her work, and her dream of someday opening her own bakery. Nathan talked about his company, but for the first time in a long time, he also talked about himself. Not his achievements, not his success, just himself. He admitted that his life looked perfect from the outside, but many nights he returned home feeling like something was missing. Emma listened carefully. She did not judge him. She did not tell him how to fix his life. She simply reminded him that success meant very little if someone had no one to share it with. Nathan looked around the small bakery and noticed something he rarely saw in his own world. People smiled here because they were happy to be together, not because they wanted something. Before leaving, he thanked Emma for the coffee. She smiled and said, "You are welcome anytime." It was a simple invitation, but to Nathan, it felt like something much bigger. For years, people had opened doors for him because of his money and influence. This was the first time someone opened a door because of who he was becoming. And without realizing it, Nathan had taken his first step into a world completely different from his own. A world where kindness mattered more than status, and where one ordinary conversation could change everything. Days passed, and something unexpected began to happen in Nathan Brooks's life. He started looking forward to moments that had nothing to do with business. For years, his calendar had been filled with meetings, presentations, and decisions that affected thousands of people. Every hour had a purpose. Every conversation had a goal. But now he found himself making time for simple things, like stopping by a small bakery on a quiet street in Chicago. Emma Wilson never treated him like someone important. She did not change her voice when he walked in. She did not try to impress him. She simply smiled and asked how his day was. That question stayed with him because almost no one asked it anymore. They usually asked about his company, his success, or his plans for the future. They rarely asked about him. Emma continued living her normal life. She woke up early, prepared Lucas's breakfast, and worked hard at the bakery. Nathan noticed something about her that surprised him. Even when she was tired, she found reasons to be grateful. She celebrated small victories. She smiled when Lucas showed her a drawing from school. She appreciated a quiet cup of coffee before the busy day began. Nathan had spent years chasing bigger achievements, but Emma reminded him that happiness was often found in smaller moments. One afternoon, Nathan visited the bakery while Emma was preparing a new recipe. He watched as she carefully measured ingredients and tested different flavors. "You really love this," he said. Emma looked up and smiled. "I do. Someday, I want to have my own bakery. A place where people feel welcome." Nathan looked around the small shop. "Why have you not done it yet?" Emma paused for a moment. She looked toward Lucas, who was drawing at a nearby table. "Because sometimes life asks you to take care of what matters most first." Nathan understood those words. He knew what it meant to sacrifice something for a bigger responsibility. But his sacrifices had always been about business. Emma's sacrifices had been about love. That difference made him respect her even more. Later that evening, Nathan invited Emma and Lucas to a small community event supported by his company. Emma hesitated at first. She worried that she would not fit into his world. Nathan noticed her hesitation. "You do not have to pretend to be someone else," he said. "I think that is what makes you different." Those words touched her because they were not about her circumstances. They were about who she was. At the event, Emma saw another side of Nathan. He was not just the successful CEO people talked about in the news. He was patient with employees. He listened to families. He remembered small details about people's lives. She realized that beneath his serious image was someone who cared deeply, even if he had forgotten how to show it. For Nathan, the evening was just as meaningful. Watching Emma interact with others reminded him of something he had lost. A life was not measured only by achievements. It was measured by the connections people built along the way. As they stood outside the event under the city lights, Nathan looked at Emma and realized something had changed. He was no longer interested in helping her because he felt sorry for her. He admired her because she had something he had been searching for his entire life, a sense of purpose. And for the first time in many years, Nathan wondered if the greatest success he could find would not come from building a bigger company, but from building a better life. The more time Nathan Brooks spent with Emma Wilson, the more he realized how different his life had become. He was still the same man the business world recognized. He still led a billion-dollar company. He still made decisions that affected thousands of employees. But something inside him had shifted. He no longer measured every day by meetings completed or goals achieved. He started noticing the moments between those things. A quiet conversation, a laugh from Lucas, a simple walk through the neighborhood with someone who saw him as a person instead of a title. But while Nathan was discovering a new side of life, Emma was beginning to wonder if their worlds were too different to ever truly connect. She had seen how people looked at her when she stood beside him. She noticed the difference between her small apartment and his luxury office. She knew that a billionaire's life came with expectations she had never experienced. One evening, after Nathan dropped off some books for Lucas, Emma stood by the doorway and hesitated before saying goodbye. "Nathan, can I ask you something?" she said softly. He nodded. "Do you ever feel like this is complicated?" Nathan looked at her with curiosity. "What do you mean?" Emma looked down for a moment. "Your world is so different from mine. You have people who plan your schedule, protect your reputation, and expect certain things from you. I'm just trying to give my son a good life." Nathan listened carefully. He understood that Emma was not trying to push him away. She was protecting herself and Lucas from a world that might not accept them. "Emma," he said, "you are the first person in a long time who has not cared about what I have. You cared about who I am." Those words stayed with her. But the difference between their lives became even more obvious when Nathan invited Emma to visit his company headquarters. He wanted to show her the place where he spent most of his time. As Emma walked through the tall glass building, she saw employees greeting Nathan with respect. Everyone knew his name. Everyone looked to him for answers. But she also noticed something else. Between meetings, Nathan stopped to ask an employee about their family. He remembered small details. He listened instead of simply giving instructions. She realized that the kindness she saw in private was the same kindness he showed when nobody expected it. Later that day, Nathan visited Emma's neighborhood. He sat at the small kitchen table where Lucas did his homework. He helped fix a loose cabinet handle and listened as Emma talked about her dream of opening a bakery one day. The contrast between their lives was impossible to ignore. His world was built with glass towers and executive offices. Hers was built with family photos, homemade meals, and small moments that mattered. Yet somehow, both places felt like home when they were together. That night, Nathan returned to his apartment and looked around. The space was beautiful, expensive, and carefully designed. But it felt quiet. For the first time, he understood why he had always felt something was missing. He had created a successful life, but he had forgotten to create a meaningful one. Meanwhile, Emma sat beside Lucas as he slept peacefully, thinking about the man who had entered their lives unexpectedly. She still did not know where their connection would lead. But she knew one thing. Nathan was no longer just the billionaire who stopped at a train station. He was becoming someone she trusted. And that trust was something neither of them had expected to find. For the first time in years, Nathan Brooks found himself looking forward to moments that were not written on his calendar. A simple conversation with Emma Wilson could stay in his mind longer than a major business decision. A few minutes helping Lucas with homework could feel more meaningful than another successful meeting. But as his connection with Emma grew stronger, Nathan began facing a challenge he had never experienced before. He had built an empire by controlling every detail of his life. Yet this was something money could not control. It was trust. One afternoon, Nathan arrived at the bakery and noticed Emma looking through a small notebook filled with ideas. She quickly closed it when she saw him. "What was that?" Nathan asked with a smile. Emma laughed softly. "Nothing important." Nathan shook his head. "I do not believe that." After a moment, Emma showed him the notebook. Inside were plans for her dream bakery. She had written down possible names, recipes, costs, and ideas for creating a place where people could feel welcome. Nathan looked through the pages carefully. He saw something he rarely saw in business meetings. Passion without a desire for recognition. "You should do this," he said. Emma smiled sadly. "Dreams are easier when life is simple." Nathan understood what she meant. Emma was not afraid of working hard. She was afraid of losing the stability she had fought so hard to build for Lucas. She had learned that every decision came with responsibility. Later that week, Nathan faced a difficult moment of his own. His company was preparing for a major expansion, and his executives expected him to focus entirely on the project. The opportunity could increase his company's success and strengthen his reputation. In the past, he would have accepted without hesitation. But now, he found himself thinking about something different. He thought about Emma's bakery dream. He thought about Lucas waiting to show him a new drawing. He thought about the small moments that had changed the way he saw his own life. During a meeting, one of his executives asked, "Are you sure this is your priority right now?" Nathan looked around the room. For years, he had always known the answer. But this time he paused. "Success matters," he said. "But success without meaning is not enough." His team was surprised. Nathan Brooks was known for making fast decisions. Yet this was the first time they saw him choose based on something deeper than numbers. That evening, Nathan visited Emma. They sat outside the bakery as the city lights appeared around them. Emma noticed that something was different. "Something happened today," she said. Nathan smiled. "I realized I have spent most of my life building things people can see. Companies, buildings, a reputation." He looked at her. "But I never thought about building a life I actually wanted to live." Emma listened quietly. She understood that Nathan was changing, but she also knew change was not always easy. "You do not have to become someone else," she said. "You just have to remember who you are when nobody is watching." Nathan smiled because those words were exactly what he needed to hear. For the first time, the billionaire who had everything was learning from someone who had far less. Emma had never tried to change his world. She simply showed him a different way to see it. And slowly, Nathan realized that the greatest opportunity in his life might not be the next business deal. It might be the people who made him feel like he finally belonged. The days that followed brought a quiet change in both Nathan Brooks and Emma Wilson. Nothing happened suddenly. There were no grand promises or dramatic moments. Instead, their connection grew through the small choices they made every day. Nathan started becoming part of Emma and Lucas's routine, not because he wanted to change their lives, but because he wanted to understand them. He learned that Lucas always wanted to share stories after school. He learned that Emma preferred simple coffee in the morning before starting her busy day. He learned that happiness could exist in places he had never noticed before. One Saturday afternoon, Nathan joined Emma and Lucas at a local park. It was a simple day with no business meetings, no assistants, and no expectations. Nathan sat on a bench while Lucas showed him drawings from his school notebook. The pictures were colorful and full of imagination. "You always draw places you want to visit," Nathan said. Lucas smiled. "I want to see everything someday." Nathan looked at the child and remembered a time when he also had dreams that had nothing to do with money or success. Emma watched them quietly. She saw a side of Nathan that the world never saw. He was patient. He was kind. He was present. The man people knew as a billionaire CEO was becoming someone completely different in the moments that mattered most. But Emma still carried a quiet fear inside. She knew that Nathan's world was powerful and complicated. She worried that one day he would return to his old life and realize that their simple world was not enough. One evening, she finally shared those thoughts with him. They were standing outside the bakery after closing, watching the city lights shine above the streets. "Nathan, I need you to know something," Emma said softly. "I do not want you to feel responsible for us." Nathan looked surprised. "What makes you think I do?" Emma took a breath. "Because you are someone who fixes problems. You see something difficult, and you find a solution. But Lucas and I are not a problem to solve." Nathan stayed quiet for a moment. Her words reached him deeply because she was right. For most of his life, he had measured his value by what he could accomplish. He had built companies, created opportunities, and solved challenges. But love was different. A family was different. They did not need a perfect person. They needed someone who chose to stay. "Emma," Nathan said, "I do not see you as something I need to fix. I see you as someone who reminds me what life is supposed to feel like." She looked at him, unsure how to respond. Nathan continued, "Before I met you, I thought having everything meant never needing anyone. Now I understand that the right people do not make you weaker. They make your life more meaningful." Emma smiled because those words were not about wealth or promises. They were about honesty. Meanwhile, Nathan's company continued to demand his attention. His executives noticed the changes in him. He was still focused and successful, but he no longer worked every hour just to prove himself. He had learned to create balance. He had learned that being present for people mattered as much as reaching professional goals. And Emma began allowing herself to believe something she had forgotten long ago. Maybe she did not have to carry everything alone. Maybe accepting kindness was not a sign of weakness. Maybe it was simply another form of strength. Neither of them knew exactly where their journey would lead, but they both understood one thing. The night at the train station was no longer just a memory. It was the beginning of a new way of seeing life, love, and what truly mattered. The first sign that Nathan Brooks and Emma Wilson's lives were changing was not something dramatic. It was a small moment that most people would have ignored. Nathan was sitting at Emma's kitchen table, helping Lucas finish a school project while Emma prepared dinner nearby. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of laughter and the soft movement of everyday life. Nathan looked around and realized something surprising. This simple evening meant more to him than many expensive experiences he had collected over the years. He had spent most of his life surrounded by luxury, but he had rarely felt this comfortable being himself. However, while Nathan was discovering a new kind of happiness, the outside world was beginning to notice the changes in his life. As the CEO of a major company, Nathan's personal choices often became public conversations. People followed his professional decisions, his appearances, and the way he spent his time. Soon, rumors started spreading about the billionaire who was spending time with a single mother from a small neighborhood bakery. Some people were curious. Others questioned why someone like Nathan would choose a life so different from what they expected. Emma saw the attention growing and became worried. She had never wanted to become part of a public story. She did not want Lucas to feel like his life was being watched by strangers. One evening, she sat with Nathan and explained her concerns. "I never wanted your world to become more complicated because of us," she said. Nathan looked at her and understood the fear behind her words. Emma was not worried about herself. She was worried about protecting the peaceful life she had built for her son. "Emma," Nathan said calmly, "my world was complicated long before I met you." She looked at him quietly. Nathan continued, "The difference is that now I finally have something worth protecting." His answer touched her, but she still wondered if their differences would eventually become too difficult. Nathan had spent years building relationships with powerful people. Emma had spent years building a safe home with simple values. Their worlds could not have been more different. Then Nathan faced another challenge. His company was preparing for a major announcement, and his family wanted him to focus completely on maintaining the image they had carefully created for years. His mother, Elizabeth Brooks, invited him to dinner and gently expressed her concerns. She did not dislike Emma. She simply worried that Nathan was making choices based on emotion instead of careful thinking. "You have worked your entire life to build this," she told him. Nathan listened respectfully. In the past, he might have agreed immediately. But now he thought about something different. He thought about the train station. He thought about Emma's kindness. He thought about Lucas's laughter. He thought about the person he had become since meeting them. "I built my success to create a better life," Nathan said, "not to spend my entire life protecting an image." Those words surprised even him. For years, Nathan believed success meant proving himself to others. Now he understood that success also meant being honest with himself. Meanwhile, Emma began making a decision of her own. She realized she could not keep assuming she did not belong in Nathan's world. She had spent years believing her circumstances defined her. But Nathan never saw her that way. He saw her courage, her compassion, and her strength. As the pressure around them increased, both of them faced the same question. Could two people from completely different worlds choose each other when everyone else expected them to walk away? The days after Nathan Brooks made his decision were not easy, but they were honest. For the first time in his life, Nathan stopped trying to make everyone else comfortable with his choices. He understood that there would always be people who questioned him, but he also understood that a meaningful life could not be built around other people's expectations. Emma Wilson noticed the change in him. The man who once seemed impossible to reach was now more open, more patient, and more willing to share the parts of himself he had hidden for years. One evening, Nathan invited Emma and Lucas to his home for a quiet dinner. It was a beautiful place, filled with expensive furniture and views of the city skyline. But Nathan did not want them to see the luxury. He wanted them to see the person behind it. Lucas looked around with curiosity, but did not seem impressed by the size of the apartment. Instead, he noticed a shelf filled with old books. "Do you read all of these?" Lucas asked. Nathan smiled. "I used to. Before work became the most important thing in my life." Lucas picked up one of the books and asked Nathan about it. For the next hour, the billionaire CEO sat on the floor explaining stories to a child who only cared about imagination. Emma watched quietly from across the room. She realized that Nathan was not trying to become someone different. He was simply returning to the person he had been before success changed his priorities. Later that night, after Lucas went to sleep, Emma and Nathan stood near the window looking at the city below. No, I never imagined my life would look like this, Emma said. Nathan smiled. Neither did I. She looked at him. Are you sure this is what you want? Your life was already planned before we met. Nathan looked outside for a moment before answering. I spent years building a life that impressed people I barely knew. Then I met someone who showed me a life I actually wanted to live. Emma felt the weight of those words. She had spent so long protecting herself from disappointment that accepting happiness felt unfamiliar. But Nathan had never asked her to become someone else. He had never treated her past as a weakness. He respected everything she had done to build a life for Lucas. Meanwhile, Nathan prepared for an important company event where he would introduce new plans for the future. Many people expected him to return to the old version of himself, the businessman who cared only about growth and reputation. Instead, Nathan spoke about balance, responsibility, and creating a company culture that valued people as much as results. His employees noticed the difference. The world still saw him as a billionaire, but the people closest to him saw something more important. They saw a man who had changed. Emma also began changing. She reopened her old dream of owning a bakery. With encouragement from Nathan, she started planning again, not because she needed his help, but because she finally believed her dream was possible. Nathan supported her without taking control. He offered advice when she asked and stepped back when she needed to make her own decisions. That was the difference between helping someone and trying to rewrite their life. Together, they learned that love was not about one person saving another. It was about two people becoming better because they chose to walk beside each other. But as their connection became stronger, one final challenge remained. The world was watching, and soon they would have to decide whether their story belonged to them or to everyone else's opinions. Years later, Emma Wilson still remembered the cold night at the train station when everything changed. At the time, she thought she was simply trying to get through a difficult moment with her son. She never imagined that one unexpected conversation would lead her to a completely different life. But as she stood outside her own bakery on a quiet morning in Chicago, watching customers walk through the doors, she realized that some of the most important moments in life begin in places we least expect. The bakery was no longer just a dream written inside an old notebook. It had become a place filled with warmth, laughter, and the same kindness Emma had always carried with her. Nathan Brooks stood nearby, watching her greet every customer with the same genuine smile that first caught his attention. He was still known around the world as a successful billionaire CEO, but the people closest to him knew a different story. They knew a man who had learned to slow down, listen, and appreciate the people around him. Nathan never tried to take credit for Emma's success. He never called it something he gave her. He always said it was something she built herself. And Emma respected him for that. Their relationship had never been about one person saving another. It was about two people who discovered that they were stronger together than they were alone. Lucas had grown older too. He still remembered the train station where he first met Nathan. To him, Nathan was never just a wealthy businessman. He was the person who listened to his stories, helped with his school projects, and showed up when it mattered. One evening, many years after that first meeting, Emma and Nathan returned to the same train station where their story began. The platform looked different, but the feeling remained. The same lights shone above them. The same sounds of arriving trains filled the air. But this time, they were not strangers standing in the cold. They were a family remembering how far they had come. Emma looked around and smiled. It is hard to believe this is where everything started. Nathan nodded. I used to think that night was about helping someone else. Emma looked at him. And now? Nathan smiled softly. Now I know that night helped me too. He explained that before meeting her, he believed success meant reaching higher, earning more, and proving himself to the world. But Emma showed him something he had forgotten. A meaningful life was not measured by what someone owned. It was measured by the love they gave and the connections they created. Emma also changed because of Nathan. She learned that accepting support did not mean losing her independence. She learned that strong people could still allow others to stand beside them. Together, they built a life that neither of them could have imagined. A life filled with simple mornings, family dinners, shared dreams, and moments that mattered more than any achievement. Nathan once believed he had everything because he could buy almost anything. Emma showed him that the most valuable things in life were never for sale. And every time they passed that train station, they remembered the same lesson. Sometimes a single act of kindness does not just change one person's day. Sometimes it changes two people's entire lives.